I would love to just get right into the practice, if you want to call it a practice, without providing a whole bunch of technical details and context. Maybe what I'll do is provide context along the way so that we don't start off with some boring expose on Tantra or awareness or why this is what it is, why we are doing this. I'll just talk about that kind of along as we go along, I think is maybe better. So rather than going into technical details, I would love to invite you to just begin with me just by becoming more oriented to your space, just by becoming oriented to your body and to your body within this space that you find yourself. And all that means is that I would invite you to just become more aware of the felt sense of being right here. The felt sense meaning the sensations that you are aware of as body. Feel this body. I'm aware of this body held by this seat. So maybe take a few moments to become aware of the feeling of being held by solidness or earthiness, or whether your seat is the ground or whether your seat is a chair. If I'm sitting on a chair, I have my feet flat on the ground. So you may also be more aware of the feeling of your feet actually connected, if they are, to the ground. Feeling of the feet plugged into like solidness, earthiness. If your feet are not touching the ground, that's okay. You become tuned into the felt sense of whatever is holding your body, holding your body. And along with that awareness, I would again invite you to become more aware of the space within which your body is currently being experienced. Become more aware of the space. And so you might become aware of objects that exist inside or outside of this room. If you're sitting near a window, there may be stuff to become aware of outside of the room. If you are looking around, just slowly kind of taking in whatever objects are of interest to you or not. Maybe they're not particularly interesting at all, just becoming aware of objects inside or outside of this room. Or maybe there's objects that you are particularly fond of and you might rest your gaze at that or those objects. So become more aware of the feeling of my body here being held by ground, being surrounded by space of this room filled with these objects that I see, filled with these sounds that I hear. You may be aware of, along with the feeling of your body in the space of this room, you may become more aware of yourself thinking thoughts, having thoughts. And just noticing what that's like. Just to become a little bit more oriented to the felt sense of your experience right here in this moment, the felt sense of the body and the felt sense of this space. Just becoming more oriented, not trying to really do anything other than being aware of what is being felt, what is being seen, what is being heard, or smelled, or even tasted. And the point of all of this is the awareness of it, the knowingness. This is a synonymous word, awareness, or the knowingness that you are feeling sensations, thinking thoughts. The practice that we're going to approach, I don't even know if I want to call it a practice. The technique, I don't even want to call it a technique, although it has a name as if it is a technique. It's really like the technique of doing nothing, of simply being aware for the sake of awareness itself. Is more like actively being aware of being aware of our experience without really trying to do anything. The practice is known by the name Vikalpa Kshaya. Vikalpa refers to mental constructs, thought stories, vikalpas. If you're familiar with yoga, you'll probably be familiar with that word. Vikalpa Kshaya means to dissolve mental constructs, means to dissolve thought stories. So in this practice, we will very simply just become very aware of the fact that we're being aware of all the stuff that there is to be aware of without trying to do anything with any of it. So we will watch the thinking, the thoughts, but we won't get all that involved or at all. We won't get involved at all in the content of the thoughts. It's not important. We're not going to try to change the thinking either. The thinking itself is not the problem. So we're not trying to do anything with the thinking. Thinking is not the problem, right? I hope you see that, because we villainize thinking in meditation. We often think we need to empty the thoughts or have better thoughts or whatever. The thinking is just an expression of awareness, of the awareness that you are. So the problem is not the thinking, the problem is our total identification with the thinking, our total belief in the thinking. That's the problem. So these thought stories like spin around within us constantly, and we remain totally contracted by them. Contracted meaning not aware of what we really are. Totally absorbed in the drama of these thought stories and completely identified with them and as their content, meaning I believe that I'm all that stuff spinning in my head. And in non-dual tantric yoga, that's a big problem, to believe I'm all that stuff. Why? Because non-dual tantra says that there's only one thing. It reveres one thing, is awareness itself as being the ultimate principle of reality, just awareness. It's not something special, or it's either the most special thing and the most normal, predictable thing, both at the same time. So non-dual tantra says that everything is this awareness. There's nothing that's not this. And everything in creation, including our thinking, thoughts, and our sensations, bodily sensations, and our feelings, and all the stuff we see and hear and feel and taste and smell, that all of it is an expression of this one awareness, not separate from it, not separate, but contained within this one field of knowingness, of awareness, of consciousness. So in this practice, we are told from the scripture I'm pulling this from, we're told that by going there to awareness, to that center that is awareness, by going there consciously and abiding there, that the innate peacefulness of that awareness will grow, will expand, that our identification as that awareness will expand to become the predominant mode through which we experience life, meaning we become more aware than we're not. We don't become, after some time and practice, we don't become contracted by these objects of experience. We don't become contracted and lose ourselves, lose our awareness by the thought stories or by that sensation or by that appears out there or by whatever. We don't become contracted by the objects of experience. We don't lose awareness, that means, because we maintain awareness at all times. But the way to this place is not by reading about it a lot or using 1,000 different techniques that touch on this, that touch on this, and touch this. The way to expand that is simply by going there and abiding in that as that awareness. And then it grows, and then it expands. The scripture, the text that I'm pulling this from, tells us that very clearly. You want to expand that center that is awareness, it says. You want to expand the innate peacefulness and joy and ananda, like bliss, like sweet, subtle blissfulness of that natural state of awareness, then you simply have to go there and abide there so that it may. So this practice has two parts to it, has two effects, really. In being that a field of awareness within which all the thinking and other stuff occurs, that just by being there and knowing and watching, that by doing that, that stills the mind's storytelling. It dissolves the mental constructs, the vikalpas, but not by trying to do anything. But it also says that it, just by doing that, just by going there and being that field of awareness that you are, that will expand. So hope that makes, this is like my in a nutshell context. So we're going to just do this together. I'm going to practice this together. And I will guide you toward practicing this without it being a practice, without it being a technique. We're just abiding in our self as awareness. It's not a thing you can do. It's not a thing you can like grasp. As soon as you grasp, you contract. And then it's done. So the best way toward this, and I will hopefully help you with this, is to, as much as possible, soften or surrender the sense of a meditator who's doing a meditation, who's using a technique. Relinquish the meditator softly. Relinquish sounds maybe harsh. Softly, surrender it. It comes in layers. It's a practice, right? Why we do this. So, with that said, are you ready? You don't have to be ready. What does that mean? Okay. So just wherever you are, you can do this anywhere that you are. This is probably the meditation technique I do the most because you don't have to do anything, and I love that. Lazy, I don't want to do anything. This is the best technique. You don't have to do anything. So very simple. We're just going to be wherever we are, in your seat, laying on the ground, although it's easy to fall asleep doing that. Seated on a meditation throne or whatever. I'm on a chair, my feet flat on the ground. I have my hands flat on my knees or thighs. It's like a seated like Wu Chi, very intentional. Hands flat. And the knees, feet flat on the ground. You can do whatever, hands folded in lap or other mudras or nothing. Just find a position for your arms so that you can be at ease. Is most important. Just take a few moments to gently sort of transition into this space of practice, so to speak. Transition into this attitude of practice. So you may begin by being very aware of yourself there. We've started there, so it may be an easy transition to just be very aware of yourself, your body there, being held there by the seat, by the chair, by the ground. Just know that feeling. There's that knowingness again, that awareness that is aware, that is watching, which the non-dual tantrikas revere as the ultimate principle of reality, awareness. Only in this verse that's described in text, it suggests something in practice. It suggests to just allow the attention to sink down into the center. The center can mean a few different things, but we're just going to imagine that very gently that our attention or our awareness kind of sinks down away from the head, away from the thinking, like down through the body, where it can come to rest more in the center of the body at like the heart. So we're just imagining or getting the sense that our attention is floating down away from the head, down away from the thinking thoughts, where it will rest somewhere in the center of the body, that's somewhere within the heart, the seat of awareness. In Tantric yoga, this is the seat of the self, seat of consciousness. So you can just get the sense or imagine that your attention floats down very slowly, down away from your thoughts, so that it can come to rest, to abide in the center. So it's almost like as we do this, you may imagine that you're aware of the thinking, you're aware of the sounds, you're aware of the feeling, as if you're being aware of all of the stuff through the center, through the heart. Meaning that you may be able to be aware of the felt sense, the feeling sense, the sensations of the body, sensations of the body being held, sensation of like clothing on skin. But if possible, see if you can just be aware of those senses, those sensations, and the senses like hearing, sounds, feeling sensations, thinking thoughts, as if you're being aware of all of it from the center of your body, from like your heart center. And the text says to do something like this. It says just to allow your attention to abide in the center at the heart while paying no particular attention to any one thing. Meaning, don't become involved in any of it. You may be aware of the thinking thoughts. You may just watch yourself having these streams of thoughts. But is it possible to just be aware that you are watching your thoughts be aware that you are watching them. There's that being aware of being aware. So there's a knowingness that you're watching. And as you watch yourself thinking thoughts, streams of thoughts or single thoughts, you're to do nothing in particular with any of it. I'm loosely quoting Tantric text, scripture. Do nothing. Is it possible to allow yourself to sort of soften into the background, sort of sink into the background? I described the center, but you might find it even more accessible to consider or get the sense that you sort of settle into the background or soften into the background, or melt into the background, where you're just very aware of all the stuff that there is to be aware of, without really caring about any of it, without paying any particular attention to any of it. But the invitation is to, and it's very subtle, is to touch on that sort of subtle layer of knowingness where you know that you are being aware of the content of your experience. Meaning you know that you are being aware that you are thinking thoughts. You may also, along with your awareness of thinking thoughts, be aware of feeling sensation, varying sensations of varying intensities. How about? Could be tingling or buzzing or vibrating, pulsing, tightness, heaviness, numbness. It could be anything. You may also be aware, along with your awareness of thinking thoughts and feeling sensations, you may be very aware of hearing sounds without really paying any particular attention to the source of the sound. You may just have the thought like hearing, awareness of hearing. As you allow yourself to melt into this background of knowingness, these are words I'm using to describe something that's not easy to describe or comprehend with the limitations of our human mind. You may get the sense of releasing or melting into the background as this knowingness, as this awareness, which just watches the sensations, which just watches the thinking thoughts, the hearing sounds. Is it possible to just know that you're thinking thoughts without becoming contracted by them? Contracted by them means losing awareness. means getting wrapped up in the drama, in the content. And so, is it possible to know that you are thinking thoughts, to be aware of the very fact of awareness itself that is watching thoughts, thinking? If there is a point of focus in this meditation, it's on the very fact of awareness itself, watching or knowing. And I sort of suggested to you that this works best ultimately when we relinquish the one who is meditating, the one who is trying to be awareness, who is trying to do nothing. This works best when, or as we sort of melt or surrender into the background, if we, as much as possible, surrender the sense of the one who is meditating, and rather abide there as the field or space of awareness with which we are knowing. You might catch like little moments of it, little glimpses where you are able to release yourself completely, so that you may just be the knowing field of awareness that's watching the thinking thoughts and the feeling sensations and the hearing sounds. And so is the text that I pulled this from, which is called Pratya Bijna Hridaya, means the heart of the recognition philosophy. It describes just a small handful of practices to help one fully recognize themselves as this field of pure knowingness. It becomes easier to recognize ourselves as this expansive field of knowingness as we still the mind's storytelling more and more and more, which that storytelling of the mind, the thinking of the thoughts, usually only veils over the pureness, the expansiveness of this field or background of pure knowingness that I am. Battling with the thinking thoughts is futile. It's just contract more. So instead, we're just watching the thinking thoughts, these fluctuations of energy, these patterns of awareness as they appear and disappear. We're not overly interested in the content of them. We're not following them. We're just knowing that we're thinking thoughts. But again, more subtle than that is the knowingness that I am knowing those thoughts. There's an awareness that I am being aware. And again, just invitation to start bringing back into your awareness thing. If it's not there already, but the sense of being held there, the sense of the chair, the couch, or the ground, holding, supporting, as a feeling sense, as sensation, not just as thinking about being held, but the feeling of being supported, of feeling supported, being held by, call it earthiness, same thing, chair, just solidness. Doesn't need to be on, I don't mean on sitting on the actual earth, being connected to solidness. And you may be aware of whatever there is to be aware of. Now, before, and if you haven't already, before, it just is like we're moving toward this point of returning with our eyes open and such, but no rush there, because there's this just essential moment that occurs when we transition from closed eye, like meditation, to open eye, perceiving the objects of this space, this room. There's this essential moment. In fact, it's even pointed to in this text I'm pulling this practice from. It's even pointed to in that text, talks about this, in this moment where we come out of meditation, because in this meditation with our eyes closed, we're very aware of being this field of awareness within which these thoughts are happening, within which these sensations are being experienced. But then we open our eyes and very quickly forget. And suddenly we're very convinced by this illusion of this space of objects that seem to be separate from my own self and separate from this awareness that I am, when in fact nothing can even exist outside of or separate from this awareness. So we forget quickly. And so as it feels appropriate, as you feel more comfortable in awakening from or arising out of this closed eye, internalized state, I would invite you to just very slowly take in with full awareness the space of this room as it remanifests within the field of your awareness as an expression of your own self or awareness. It's hard to wrap our minds around because our mind is not designed that way. So, of course, we open our eyes, that desk, that chair, that person looks separate and separated by both time and space, and separate from my own self that I call Aaron or whoever. We're just becoming aware again of the space within which we find ourselves. We're still always being held here by the ground, being plugged into the ground. As we orient ourselves back to the space, back to the objects within the space, the sounds, becoming aware of sounds inside or outside, everywhere, apparently outside. But as we soon discover, there's no inside or outside. So again, the practice has a name, though I don't want to call it a name and it to become a technique that you, the meditator, has to grasp onto. But right in the name of the technique, which is Vikalpa Kshaya, is to dissolve. Its intention is to do two things: to dissolve that busy, chattering mind, to dissolve that energy, and along the way to expand our sense of self as that field of awareness within which all of that thinking and all of that feeling and all of those sensations and all of that hearing, etc., is taking place. I'll make a copy of this recording available on like my Facebook or wherever we put all this stuff. And but as you get it, you don't need me to guide you. It's just like literally do nothing. Just be. It's really the practice of being as you most naturally, purely are. Don't chase a technique. Keep practicing this idea of surrendering the one who is meditating using a technique. Replace it with the experience of being awareness. Being aware of being aware. I very much appreciate all of you showing up, hanging out, being open to doing this stuff that I am passionate about and consider it to be essential work for humans who want to be free. The conditions of the past, which I assume is all of us, once we're aware enough, at least. I would like to invite you, if you have any questions or comments or questions, mostly just, I don't need your praise or anything. I don't mean like, so everyone shower me with your comments of praise now, but I'd like more interesting like questions or curiosities or nothing. You might have no need for talking or communicating. Just be stillness. Talking might ruin it. And I also don't need you to ask anything, just so you know. Open invitation.
Thank you very much for this, Aaron.
Joshua, you are very welcome.
I've been meditating every night for the last month and a half, and it has definitely transformed my life and my experience of it. So
awesome. I'm glad to hear that, and keep on keeping on. Keep on being aware.
Karen.
Hey, Christopher.
I'm trying to make the video work, but I'm in the desert and it's
You're in the
difficult.
Middle East, the desert. I'll send you the recording.
Thanks for making doing nothing so easy.
I love doing nothing. Determined to
the
not.
best.
Thanks, buddy.
I have a strange question. For you and anybody else, if they notice this. I notice that when I'm not speaking, but I'm having thoughts, that the same muscles will activate in my mouth area as if I were speaking. And then when I
Mhm.
don't, when I don't, when I notice that, I'm able to stop that, and it stops the chatter, because mostly
Wha-
it's my own voice,
Why
right?
why try to stop it?
Just to see if I can, I guess.
I would love to, and if I was with you one-on-one, I would guide you through slowing that down and really feeling it, so that that energy there can be digested and liberated from your system, so that then you can still the chatter rather than trying to stop the thing. It's more like experience it fully, really slowly, very intimately, so that it can do what it needs to do and resolve or be digested, for lack of a better word.
Hmm.
Hmm. That's the somatic way
Mm-hmm.
to some, I guess. Not the somatic way. I have the way. But I would just get curious about it and like really allow it and go into it. And just watch it, feel it.
Well, I do. Like that is something, like I'm in observation, I guess,
And then what
most of
happens
the
when you
time.
do?
Nothing, nothing significant.
Maybe nothing significant happens.
Right. It's just there.
It's just a thing to be experienced within and as an expression of your own self, which is awareness. So it's a thing to be curious and open to and just watch and know.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for being awesome.
You're welcome.
Good response. Jay says, can I speak to that? Also putting your tongue to the roof of your mouth, yeah, maybe help with that. It connects your energy centers. That's something that I personally do, and I've just been taught since the beginning to. In tantric yoga is like kuchari mudra, the tongue like up, even not just pointed up, but even maybe into the like sinus cavity, like quite high up. But in qigong as well, there's a lot of curling the tongue up. Yeah, in qigong, because it does increase the flow of life energy, of our energy, and in the context of meditative practices, that it just allows, that kind of opens it up, opens the meditation up. The reason I don't teach it just generally like this is because most people are so focused on trying to do something with their tongue and keep their tongue relaxed, and it's getting cramped, it's getting uncomfortable in my tongue, and why am I doing this with my tongue? That it's just like, it's just not necessarily worth it unless it's just something you do already. And but yeah, if you're practicing qigong or meditations, I would generally curl the tip of the tongue up. Thank you for that, bringing that up.
Speaking of Qigong, I just wanted to thank you, Aaron, for inspiring me, because you're the one who introduced me to Qigong, and now I'm teaching it.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
That's
So
awesome.
thank you. I love it. It's
Awesome.
it's pretty fucking powerful.
It's the most powerful.
Oh yeah.
Forget hatha yoga. Most of it. I mix some of the stuff together. Like I'll mix hatha
Same.
yoga stuff with qigong stuff, but
Yeah.
I like qigong as a somatic tool, just more so than the way modern yoga is taught. As a somatic tool, qigong is energetically incredibly powerful, but that's a nervous energetic system. They're intertwined. You can't separate them. In fact, it's just better and easier to think of the nervous system as like the physical mechanism through which the energetic system is functioning and flowing. So qigong is just an incredibly powerful nervous and energetic system grounder, harmonizer, expander is just crazy how directly powerful and effective it is. But the slowing down with the intention and the feeling and the visualizations, somatically speaking, is really useful for people. Get them back into their body and get them vital and alive again when so many people, come to us like shut down, and to get them like powerful and alive again.
Mhm.
Awesome. Good job.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Just reading Jay's comment. Yeah, it was a long time ago. Jay was talking about that. Jay was just saying one of meditation experience he had a long time ago. Me and him in a park somewhere.
One of my first or second experiences meditating, I had friends watching from the sideline, and they were like, "Dude, you looked at pure bliss." And it was a long one. I think it was an Evolver event or something, but there was a lot of people. There's probably 30, 40 people, I'm guessing, right? Which also they say in Qigong or other energetic work or meditations amplifies the effects when you're in a class with people that are doing these energetic vibrational raising practices.
Well, if what Tantra is saying is true, everything is awareness and
Yes.
nothing is not bad or separate from that, then we're in a constant exchange of energetic particles between us and everything in our environment. There's just everything is, I think a word that quantum physics uses even is intermingled. Everything is energetic.
Quantum entanglement And that's why I like where science and spirituality meet, where you get things like the EKG meters with mass meditation or the polar opposite of bad events happening around the world, where they can actually measure such effects right on the earth.
Crazy. I love it.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. Thanks for sharing that memory too. That was awesome when I read that.
Can I ask a question again?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
This concept of so you're becoming aware of your thoughts and you're just watching them. And then you mentioned not getting caught up in the drama and the stories. Is there a point where you're choosing, like consciously choosing to
especially at first
be part of, like, to continue the drama stories, especially if something has like an emotional charge and you're like, well, this is what I would say to this person, and
maybe it's
and then you catch yourself and you're like, oh, why am I doing that? Why am I thinking that way? And then
maybe it's more beneficial, useful to notice how quickly you lose awareness by following any one thought stream. Maybe that's the useful part of that, because that's really essential moment. I mean, there's more essential moments in there. If you can like really just watch as the thought or stream of thoughts kind of arises out of the field of awareness or self that I am, and sustains for however long it sustains, and then watch the thought as it dissolves back into the field of knowingness or awareness, and to like just watch without any interest in the content of it other than noticing the energetic patterns or waves of these thoughts rising and falling. But then really super important to notice the moments, not to be hard on yourself in any way, but to notice, wow, I like contract within a flash of an instant. I contract, meaning lose awareness, lose self. And then to recognize like, oh my God, like I'm walking around like that most of the time all day. Or most of humans are out there walking around that most of the time, all the time. Just totally contracted by, meaning not aware of anything. Or some people may have like brief glimpses or moments of being aware that they are having thoughts or feeling or whatever. So, but ultimately to the tantric yogi, the goal is to be ultimately aware, to take their rightful place as pure awareness that is not colored by or tainted by, not that it can be tainted, is not colored by the conditions of the past, which is all the stuff spinning in the head.
Mm-hmm, 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 mm-hmm.
When one can maintain awareness of the thoughts rising and falling in experience, and when one can be aware of the energies that are activated in the system moment by moment without losing awareness, and with allowing those energies to flow through the system, then that individual does not create new imprints in the deep mind and body. In yoga, these are called samskaras, imprints, most of them out of conscious awareness. But when one is so aware that they are watching all of it and feeling all of it, and so digesting all of it, they do not create new imprints. This is freedom. Means
Right,
no new
right,
samskaras.
right. Like no new wounds or
Right. But when
okay.
someone is not aware, and those energies, all that thinking, all that stuff that they're refusing to feel or can't feel, or it's not safe to feel fully, it all goes undigested in the system. It creates all these imprints, samskara, in yoga. And it's due to those imprints that we are and behave and react to and see
Yeah.
the world the way that we see the world. So to the
Right,
yogi,
right.
to take their rightful place as that awareness, that pure self, so that they're not creating new imprints, so that
Yeah.
they can be fully intimate with life, digesting every moment, and
Right,
become ultimately free.
right.
Because this is like the quality most innate to that self that is awareness, which is freedom, independence, sovereignty.
Right. Yeah, because I've felt some things come up recently due to just family drama, where you think that you've gotten over something, and then all of a sudden it's like you're re-imprinting that, like it's just, or maybe you never really dealt with it, you just kind of just chose not to think about it. But then I'm having thoughts where I'm consciously thinking about this in a healthy way, and then your thought patterns they just get hijacked, and then all of a sudden you're like over here and you're angry and you're
That's when I would slow you way down and check, what are you experiencing in your body? What's actually going on the most subtle level within your body? Stop thinking about it. Thinking about it does nothing for anything. It's just all, thinking has its place. Thinking can act as a doorway to higher self, and it can be total bondage.
Right. That's kind of what I mean, is that, like, trying to make the right choice, like, because it's, even though something might like activate me in some way, it doesn't mean that I'm trying to make a conscious choice. Should I do this or should I do this, even though I'm feeling like this, like, yeah, activated about it, I guess. But then it's trailing off, and yeah, I don't know if
The
if
Tantric
I have the right
Somatic
direction.
warrior would notice as they are activated. That means activated means something's happening in your system, right? You're flooded with some feeling and sensation, and if it becomes too much, then maybe we shut down or shut away from. But when it's okay to just be activated and feel that,
And just
you
be
enter into like the
activated.
wisdom of the body, rather than using the conditions of the past through thinking to try to figure it all out or heal it or resolve it or whatever. So it is like, more we can safely go into the body, like really slowing things down, being aware of what am I actually feeling as I become activated with anger or excitement or pleasure or pain or whatever. It doesn't matter. It's all the same, in a sense. But rather than becoming contracted by the experience, meaning wrapped up in the thoughts that come with it, wrapped up in the pain or the pleasure or whatever, rather than that, we slow down and become intimate with what is there and what is activated in the system and what needs to be expressed and so flow through us. one leads toward freedom, one just like
Oh.
keeps in a vortex.
Right.
Doesn't mean thinking's not
Thank you.
useful, but I generally don't
Yes.
trust what I'm thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Like, honestly, some of it's an expression of a purer self, yes, and most of it's just nonsense.
Right. Where you're just like reactivating yourself over and over and over again.
In like somatic
Okay.
work, we refer to it as like a trauma. People keep themselves, or we keep ourselves in like a trauma vortex.
Yeah.
You're thinking about it,
Okay.
trying to resolve it through thinking by talking about the story more, talking about the story over and over, without ever resolving the energy that's being activated in the system. I have a past with like severe drug addiction and stuff. I can watch like an intervention episode and suddenly I start trembling and my body starts like clenching and like stuff deep inside me. And it's like, that's it. That's like right there. That's like the magic moment. You want to resolve that stuff? It's right there. And then it needs to be gently teased out of the system through like feeling it, digesting it, let it ground, let it discharge. But if I immediately get up to go get a drink, or if I immediately light up a cigarette or start puffing on my vape or go drink some alcohol, or it doesn't matter, whatever, start scrolling because I'm uncomfortable in that moment and there's this thing happening, I don't like this, I've got to shift or move or change it, then we miss the moment to free ourselves from those energies that have become stuck within us.